Welcome to Mountains Made Low, where we help our listeners to, what do we help them to do again?
Encounter the love of God.
And live well in the modern world. I'm Dennis Mueller.
And I'm Christine Reagan.
Yeah, I'm a little excited today.
I can tell.
It's a coffee and tea talk, and I don't care what you're drinking. I don't care what I'm drinking. Christine changed the format a little bit today.
And
she
instantly regretted it.
Yeah, she said, listen, rather than throwing questions out and both of us kind of prepping ahead of time, how about I pick 3 questions and you don't know what they are and you have to answer them on the spot.
Which is kind of a little similar to what we did before, but we didn't know what we were going to say, but we knew the questions that would be asked.
Right, but now we
So
don't
we
even
could
know
have-
the questions. So
Yeah.
This is like, I am so excited because I know that she's not prepped.
What is this some kind? Okay, this is not like a trivia.
No,
This
no,
is not
no, no,
Catholic
no.
trivia, which by the way, I'd be fantastic at, but okay.
Well, we'll see.
Maybe we'll do that one day.
We have something in the works for that. But yeah, I'm super stoked. So Christine thought this was a great idea, and maybe after today, this will be the last time that she does this.
No, I don't like
particular
the
option.
look that you have in your eyes of just, I don't know, it's like gleeful destruction. I don't know what's going on.
It's going to be good.
You're also wearing an Empire-themed Star Wars shirt. I mean,
know.
it's not one of the
That's-
good guys.
That's typical. That's
So,
typical, though. It's
if you're
half
the
my
bad guy,
wardrobe.
I get to be the good guy. So,
Okay, well, the good guys go first.
okay.
Here we go.
All right. No, well, I got to pull it up because I was thinking that you'd be like, I have to go first. So
No,
now I gotta
no.
pull it up.
I'm patient. The Empire is patient. We are very, very patient.
I find your lack of faith disturbing. What do you think is the greatest threat facing the church today?
Indifference.
Indifference.
Apathy.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. The studies that are being conducted now just really emphasize the fact that relativism has gotten so rampant that it just doesn't matter. I don't need to go to mass. I can just pray. Like everything's just the same. I think that's the biggest threat to the church is just this relativism.
Have you seen like a recent cultural example of it? And you're like, oh, that's what's wrong with the world today. Can you think of anything specific?
Well, what do you mean by that?
I mean, I'll repeat what I literally just said. Can you think of something that you saw in the news, you heard in the culture, and you're like,
This is
that
me
is the
buying
perfect
time, by the way. This
encapsulation.
Is me buying time so I can think of my answer.
This is the perfect encapsulation of what plagues society today.
I don't know that I can point to one thing in specific, but relativism leads to in my opinion, it leads to like a polarization. Okay. Because if everything is relative, then we become self-absorbed in the sense that what matters most is what I feel matters most. It's that me, myself, and I type of attitude.
Sorry, I just spilled coffee all over myself. Continue talking.
And I think we see that. We see the polarity in politics. We see the polarity. I'm just watching you wiping the stuff from your chin.
So much coffee
I'm sorry. It's hard to
everywhere.
take it. We have to start videotaping this stuff. This will be
Never,
hilarious.
ever will that occur.
I think you see it in the hostility. You see the hostility on social media. I think that kind of leads into a little bit of an open hostility towards the church and religion too. If you're religious and you're practicing your faith, you're one of them, you're intolerant, you're bigoted, you're biased, and you can't be that if you're going to try to be truly about equality and equal rights and unconditional acceptance, then you can't be religious. Again, that all kind of plays in there. So that's my
Very cool.
answer.
All right, you're up.
Well, no, aren't you going to answer?
I guess I could. I mean, I kind of would say a lot of similar things, to be totally honest with you. Yeah. What I will say in addition to the relativism is this just denial of, it is relativistic in its expression, but just the denial of out and out truth. Things that used to be so obviously true are now questioned and denied on the most obvious level.
Right.
And that is very concerning to me.
Marriage
Things
between
that are,
a man and a
things
woman.
that are not even
Right.
so many
ton
things.
of stuff.
Yeah. Who the human person is, what it means to be alive, what it means to be male versus female. And when we start questioning obvious truth on that level, and I think that conversations around these things need to happen. I'm not trying to shut down the conversation, but that's concerning.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Because the empire is very generous and very benevolent, you can pick a number between 1 to 4 because I have 4 questions here.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the question that we'll go with. Now, some of them are easy. Some of them
4.
aren't. 4. That wasn't an easy one. Okay, so this one's a little heavy. The death penalty, yay or nay?
Nay. Okay, now let me think about that. No, death penalty always nay. Why I almost said almost always is that if there's somebody who is not imprisoned and they pose like a public threat, like a bad dictator, something like that, only then do I think that you can directly remove that person from existence. But I'm talking about things on like a global scale. Like if there's somebody who's killing their own people, that's the only time. But that's not really the death penalty. That's
assassination.
No, that's not assassination. No. If somebody, no. If somebody
You just went dark.
No. Listen.
I think you should come to the dark side.
If somebody, only if I get a T-shirt. This was my line of thinking. If somebody can actually be removed from society enough that they no longer pose a threat, then they should be in prison for the rest of their life. There's really no occasion to kill somebody.
Right. And
because
isn't
we're
that
not
what
God.
isn't that what John Paul II said, or was it Benedict? I know it was rather recent.
I feel like it's John Paul. But
Yeah. I mean, he said today's society, there's really no threat that anybody can pose because we have the means to remove them.
if you can remove somebody from society, then you still have to extend to them a dignified, incarcerated existence. Because
Yes.
that's minimally what we should be doing as Christian people.
You don't put them in a hole.
No. Like, I don't think that you should be able to take anybody's life unless it's in self-defense. And on a global scale, I only think that would apply if somebody is a danger to other people by virtue of the power that they have.
I understand what you're saying.
That's all I'm saying.
But
That's not the question that you asked.
You do understand that that's not the death penalty, though.
Right. I just said that's not the question that you asked. I'm thinking about a lot of things on the fly here.
Okay.
But no, death penalty, no. It's far cheaper, and people don't think this. They're like, well, I shouldn't have to. We should kill them because I shouldn't have to pay to keep somebody in prison
Incarcerated.
over a long period of time. It's cheaper to keep them in prison for the rest of their life because of the appeals process that often happens through a death penalty case. It's cheaper to just keep them in prison than to give them the death penalty. And people don't think about it that way, but it's more expensive to kill somebody.
Okay, so I'm going to...
But that's not the reason to do it. It's not because it's a cheaper option. It's morally wrong to kill somebody.
I'm glad you clarified, because I'm like, first you go to assassination, then you're talking about
I'm
the removal of
thinking.
dictators.
I'm just thinking out loud.
And then you're talking about the economic benefits. I mean, the church doesn't talk about any of those things when it comes to death penalty.
No, but oftentimes my mind has little to do with what's happening at the moment. So death penalty, no.
I am thoroughly enjoying this, Christine, because
Why? Why?
you are just you're so uncomfortable with this option.
I'm so uncomfortable.
This is good. I was chosen for jury duty years ago. I mean, it has to be like 20 years ago. And I just remember being in the courtroom and, they're asking all these questions, please stand if blah, blah, blah. And I heard the question, but I must have misunderstood the question because I stood up and I'm looking around the room and there's probably 100 people in this jury pool.
Yeah.
And I'm the only guy standing.
What did you stand for?
They said, and I was surprised actually that I was the only guy standing, but what they said was, is there any, under no circumstance, that you would not apply the death penalty? In other words, they're saying, so there's no gray area.
Right.
If they're convicted, it's death. I did not hear that question properly because I don't agree with that statement. But I found myself the only one standing. And within 5 minutes, juror number 24, excused. Right? I was thrown out. And I'm like, ooh, that's
What did I do?
Yeah, that was good. It wasn't until I think when I sat down, I actually replayed the question in my head. And I'm like, oop, I misunderstood that one. But it worked to my benefit. I ended up getting out of jury duty, and I wasn't picked for that trial or any trial that I was summoned for.
I've never done jury duty. I've only been asked 2 times in my life. One
Well-
was I got out of legitimately because of a work situation. And then the second time was right in the pandemic.
Yeah, the
And-
government's listening, so that's going to end right now.
That's
But in terms of the death penalty, and I would be a nay too. And the reason why I would be a nay is, again, it's the dignity of the human person for sure, Catholic social teaching. But for me, if we're really about the salvation of souls, then we can't be putting people to death before they've had time to come to their senses, like the prodigal son, and repent.
yeah.
Because if we're taking that time that they may need away from them prematurely.
I think we're responsible for that.
Yeah.
In some way.
in
We
some
should not
way.
be ushering in the death of somebody.
Right.
unnecessarily. And I just don't think in 2024, unless we're talking about global
It's not
politics
necessary.
and global violence and things like that, I don't think that there's really an occasion where that exists anymore.
Okay.
You know. All right,
you're up.
I'm back up.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about churches using social media?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's where people live today. And so there's an opportunity for it to be an effective evangelization tool, but it has to be properly
And what do you
used.
mean by that?
We can't be posting nonsense on there. I mean, anything that we post, again, should always be in conformity with the Catholic Church. But I'll give you a perfect example. So I'm just looking at Father Patrick Welsh over at St. Matthew's Parish here in Philly, because what's not to love about that guy? He's got a dog named Vader. Like, I'm all in, right?
So that's what this is about.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, he's very engaging with social media. They just had their live nativity. They have any type of event going on. He's on there with social media. They're broadcasting live. He's talking. He's engaging people, and people respond to that. People love that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a way to draw them in. And then sometimes these priests, which can seem maybe a little distant because we only see them once a week on the altar. They're formally garbed in all of their, liturgical attire, and they're preaching, and we don't really get to know them personally outside of that environment. But when you get to know somebody personally and you have a chance to make a connection, you have a chance to engage a little bit. They become somebody that you know and that whose company that maybe you enjoy or that you like to see. And I think it's a great way to build community. But you have to be careful because social media, it can go awry very, very quickly.
I agree with a lot of what you said. And what I really like about what you mentioned about Father Welsh and what St. Matt's is doing well is that if you want people to receive you at Mass, if you really want people to listen to your sermons, if you want people to be receptive to the divine life that you're trying to transmit to them, I learned this in teaching. Somebody told me, like, there's no student that's going to really accept a word that you're saying, even just receive a word that you're saying, if they don't trust you first.
Yeah.
And so the first several weeks of teaching, I'm just trying to build that trust.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that social media can be a tool to just make the parish and the staff too, just accessible. The people who really should be more a part of your life because of how important your faith life should be to you. And I think that social media can help you do that. So it helps to cultivate trust, give access to people who it would be difficult to have access to otherwise just because of the pace of life. My only concern is that everything about Instagram and TikTok, it's all quick, scroll.
Right.
And I am concerned that evangelization and faith and just a relationship in general is just that quick moment.
Yeah.
And the more we're participating in it, are we conditioning people to stay in that mode?
It's a fine line.
In the way that that's how they receive things.
No, I agree with that. I think it's a fine line. I do think that sometimes what you need to do is to maybe go that route in order to get their attention and to create engagement, maybe even to create some curiosity, because it can't stay there. That's for sure.
And that's the thing.
Evangelization can't stay in social media. Because when we talk about evangelization, what we're talking about? We're talking about an encounter with a person. And that person isn't me. It's not you. It's not Father Welsh. It's not the local pastor at your parish.
Father's like, how did I get involved in this?
That encounter is through Jesus, that encounters with Christ Jesus. All catechesis, any form of evangelization, if that's not our primary goal to lead people to an encounter, then we have to question why we're doing it. So I think it's a great way to maybe get people interested in, hey, take a look at what's going on over in this parish, come check us out. And maybe you're going for an event. Maybe it is you're going for a carnival, or maybe you're going for a live nativity, or maybe you're going for Stations of the Cross or some other type of speaker that might be there. But there's a connection there, and there's an opportunity to maybe invite them into something deeper.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing that, then yes, I would agree with you that we have to question our use of social media.
I remember feeling conflicted when we launched our own parish Instagram, and we did it a lot over the beginning of the pandemic. And for several years after, I was very, very dedicated to it. And I just remember feeling a sense of frustration, being like, okay, I'm taking this background, which is just kind of artistically relevant, and taking this quote of a saint, and I'm slapping it all together and saying, this is spirituality.
Okay.
And I'm like, it's not spirituality. This is just because you get to, that looks really pretty. And then you keep scrolling. So I felt like I was really kind of contributing to that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, it's good for this to be ever present on people. If they're on their phones, then at least we're putting something out there that's positive, that's true, that's beautiful for them to see.
Right.
But in my mind, just on repeat, this is not faith. This is not spirituality, or it can't just be all this.
Yeah.
And if everyone's communicating like that, and now the church is communicating like that, are we still sacramentally relevant? Are we still drawing people to the things that are actually life-giving and not just you get this kind of like, I don't know, whatever social media high. I don't know if it's the serotonin or the dopamine.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is that you're doing. You get elated because of it. You're like, oh, that's really nice. Or, oh, that really resonates with me. But then we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's not as life-giving as the sacraments are. We're not even on the same page. So that's what it's just, that can't be the whole of your spirituality. It can't be like insta evangelization. That's how I associated it in my mind.
Right.
And I don't think it's sustainable long-term. And it can't be the prevailing strategy.
Yeah. Again, I agree with you.
All right.
All right. So number 1, 2, or 3,
I
Christine?
I'm like the master of my own fate here. 2.
What is your biggest Catholic pet peeve?
Oh, all right. Let me think.
You have so many?
I'm a tough customer. Let me think. Biggest Catholic pet peeve. Do you have an answer for this?
I'm not telling you anything.
Oh my gosh. Give me your answer first. Give
No.
me your answer first.
No.
Oh,
That's not how it
You're going to
works.
sit here until I think of something.
That's not how it works.
Oh my gosh. Narrow the question a little bit more. You got to, like, are you talking about like in terms of teaching or faith or expression or worship or music or what? Like, there's too much.
I asked the question, what is your biggest Catholic pet peeve? I don't care what umbrella you tank it under. Everything annoys you. So there's got to be...
That's the thing. But here's the thing. I'm also
has-
really annoying. So
right.
it's not like...
But so you should be able to know exactly like, oh yeah, this thing here gets under my skin.
Oh, okay. No. Godparents. Godparents. I don't think we should have godparents at baptisms.
Ooh.
There we go. See, if you let me think and talk, I'll get to something. 100% that's it.
Please explain.
Think that... Hold on one second. I have hair in my earring and I can't...
Hair, coffee. Christine's a hot
Literally,
mess.
it's in my earring.
This episode has gone.
So here's the thing with godparents. I understand the hope for godparents that you would have other people partnering with the parents of a child to help to be a great witness to the faith and raise them in the faith. It would be an incentive for those godparents to stay close to their faith so that they can transmit something positive to the child so that they can grow in their relationship with God and minimally just pray for them. I understand all of that, but that's not what's happening. I get called multiple times on a weekly basis. I need a letter of eligibility to be a godparent or to be a sponsor for confirmation. People rarely meet the requirements, and churches don't enforce the requirements to begin with. And it's a formality because you never want a lack of a godparent or a sponsor to stand in the way of somebody receiving a sacrament.
Right.
But by and large, people are not meeting the requirements. And we're just giving it out anyway. So what's the purpose of it?
Yeah.
No one's eligible. Almost, I would say 90% of the people who call for eligibilities, and this is not a condemnation of people who call. They've been asked and they're honored, but they don't necessarily have a commitment to their faith. Most of them don't practice anyway. And so don't have requirements if you're not going to enforce them to begin with. So that really does bug me. I think we should just baptize the kids, just confirm them. Biggest pet peeve.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Of course you are. Go ahead.
And the only reason, and I agree with everything that you've said in the sense that you are correct about the way the church handles.
Just stop. Can you just say the first part of that again? Just.
It's not the first time I've agreed with you.
No, but I heard
won't be
it
the
so
last.
clearly.
Right. But no, I do agree with you with regards to how the church handles it, the difficulty it is, and all of those things. But I don't think that the church should throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to godparents, because the church is treating the approval and the paperwork as a administrative process, right? This is an administrative thing. I'm asked to be a godparent. I call my parish, hey, give me a certificate. And it's summarily given, maybe I don't meet the requirements, maybe I do.
We're not just talking about one requirement. Just from my experience,
No, I understand.
It's common that they don't meet multiple requirements.
Right. But here's the thing. This is an opportunity for the church to do what it has been created to do, which is to minister to those who are in need. And those
Agreed.
people who are being asked to be godparents, There should be somebody on the staff. You are that
I
person
am
for here.
Yes.
Who they should come in and they should sit down and have a conversation. And when you say, well, do you go to mass on a regular basis, or you here every Sunday? No, it's been a while since. Well, tell me about that. What is it that's keeping you away and everything?
And we do have those conversations, just so you know.
Right. And again, like, maybe the certificate's going to be given regardless, but there's an opportunity there for conversion. There's an invitation there to where maybe we're like, well, I just want you to, we're going to give you the certificate, but I really want you to think about this role, to talk, to understand, that.
Do you think the church is doing something wrong by giving the eligibility regardless?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I do. Like I said, I agree with you.
So doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of the conversation?
No. Not in my mind.
I think the conversation can be valuable.
Yeah.
But I think if they
here's the
know what the end result's going to be, you're not necessarily maybe having a real authentic conversation with somebody.
I think you are, because then if they know, they don't have to give you the answer that you want to hear, because they know that they're getting the certificate.
But they don't know. That's the thing. I know.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell them right up front. I'm like, I want you to know I'm going to give you the certificate.
That's an interesting strategy.
I'm going to give you this. You're going to walk out here with the certificate, but tell me. And then you can have a real conversation. And, maybe there's going to be an invitation. Maybe it's going to listen, I want you to check out. We have a men's group here. We have a women's group here. Come to mass. Just do one thing.
That's a very good way of looking at it. I think that's a really good approach.
Yeah.
My frustration just comes from the fact that that's not always the way the conversation goes down. I think you would agree about this with me, is that I really do take every phone call, every conversation as like, this might be the only encounter that somebody has with the church. And so I would never want them to know that I'm overwhelmed with, not them, it's never a personal thing, but just with the reality of what that the church is often in, not just in this area, but in so many areas.
Everywhere.
It's
everywhere.
The people become angry when you even talk to them about the purpose of being a godparent and what the responsibility is and how to live that out.
Right.
They often feel as though it's something that they're owed because they went to Catholic school here. They graduated, I gave this amount of money. And I often tell them, I said, I don't care how much. I don't care if you've given us a dime. You don't have to give us any money. And that's not what this is about.
Right.
So I wish the church had a different way of dealing with this.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I'm like, I don't want anything I say to be the reason that somebody doesn't receive a sacrament.
Sure.
Or to be a contributing factor to it. Oftentimes, the parents who are bringing the child to be baptized are not participating. And it's just like a rite of passage. And then the godparents are not participating. So my frustration is more of a sadness of just the state of the sacramental life of the church. That's really what it's about. It's not a pet peeve. It's an administrative pet peeve because I don't necessarily know how to fix the problem. But it's more of just a sadness of like, this is what's going on.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question, which is actually here on my list.
Is this episode over yet?
No, but because you brought it up. So this is going to be another question for you, and then you can hit me with your third one.
Okay.
So because you brought up godparents, I had a question on baptism. Should parents do it when children are infants, or should they wait until they're old enough to choose? Why or why not?
No, you should not wait until the child's old enough to choose. There's nothing about raising a child that you wait for them. The things that are most important, you don't wait for them to disclose to you, right? You don't wait for the child to say, I'm hungry. You don't wait for the child to say, I want to go to bed. You don't wait for the child to say, I need to be clothed, or anything like that. So why would you take the thing that is most spiritually necessary and say, I'll wait till you ask for it? No,
Amen.
as a parent, you give the child what they need because it's important to you, and therefore you want it to be important to them. And so if we do that with just the basic fundamental things that we need to live, then we should be doing it with the most fundamental sacramental realities, right? Yeah. Original sin needs to be removed as soon as possible, and the child needs to begin to grow in divine life. That should happen without delay, which is really the language of the church. The church doesn't say exactly when this has to happen. It says without delay or as soon as possible. The language is a little bit more vague when it comes to that. But should we be waiting till 7, 18, or some other kind of age that everyone has kind of universally agreed on in the public? No. Yeah. You do it as a parent because it's your responsibility to do it as soon as you can. And then the faith of the child begins because it's being transmitted through you.
Right.
And there you go. So no.
Good. Okay.
Is that the right answer?
Well, no. I mean, that's the answer that I expected you to
right
give.
Answer.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is the right answer. But that's the answer that I
now,
expected.
If somebody comes in later to be baptized, or if somebody brings their 8-year-old child or 10-year-old child to be baptized, that's great. I love it. Let's do it as soon as possible with the right formation if any of that needs to occur. So I always tell people in baptismal preparation, we will take you, if it's you, or we'll take them, meaning their children, whenever you walk. I don't care if you walk into your baptism. Let's baptize. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's the best day of the rest of your life, or the first day of the rest of your life. So there should be no shame in, oh, I wasn't baptized as an infant, or I wasn't baptized in that first year, and therefore I'm going to look different on my baptismal day than maybe other people have looked. None of that matters. None of that matters. If you want to be baptized, let's do it.
That's funny because like when I was your age, way back in the day, I would have went with the latter. I would have said.
Well, that's the difference between you and me.
I would have said, and I did say, I think it's better to wait.
Were your children all baptized as infants?
I think we might have had maybe one or two at the time, and they were baptized as infants. All my kids were baptized as infants. It was a short-lived thing. It was just, again, there was a lot of things at that time in the church, a lot of talk, a lot of stuff that was just kind of going on, and you were buying into some of the. Well, at least I was buying into some of the more progressive type things that were being promulgated and suggested. And you think it's a good idea because, this is a personal faith. How can they have a personal faith as an infant? They can't. I'm forcing this upon them. And I think that's the mentality of a lot of parents that choose to wait. But as you said, for most parents, they want the absolute best for their children. Right. And so they provide for their needs. They make sure that they are clothed, that they are fed, that they get a good education. Your kids don't have a say in what school you're going to choose to send them to. Maybe later in life they do when they're a little older, but when they're younger, if they're going to go to Catholic school, they don't have a say in that. You're going to send them to this public school or private school, they don't really have a say in that. 9 times out of 10, they don't have a say in when they're going to go to bed, what they're going to eat, all these things, because you make those choices for them because you are the parent and you know what's best for them. And when it comes, I agree with you, when it comes to our faith, I think it's something that we want our children to have eternal life. Why would we wait, first off, to delay that opening that they need through baptism to have access to the grace of God in their lives, which they're cut off from through original sin. But more importantly, why would we want to run the risk of them saying no when they get older?
And it's the grace of the sacrament they contributes to them saying
being
yes,
able to say yes,
and then in an ongoing way.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing too: you don't wait. We're talking about all these things that the child needs to eat and stuff like that. The child also needs to be loved, and so you as a parent don't wait to love the child. You just begin to do it.
Right.
So you're not going to deprive them of love, which is what's going on in the sacramental life of the church.
Yeah.
That's being loved by God.
Perfectly.
And so you never want the child to.
We
You don't
need
wait
that.
because like, I want God to love. I want you to love me, Mom. No, you just do it. And so you give them the sacraments of the church.
My life would be a hot mess without the grace of God in my life. So don't withhold it. Get them baptized. All right.
Okay.
All right. So what was your question?
What was the name of your high school garage band?
It was Phoenix.
Phoenix?
Phoenix. Yeah.
That's cool. Is that like a reference from the 80s that I don't get, maybe?
No.
Okay.
They were a little bit more into.
Oh, wait, Phoenix is a band, isn't it? Phoenix, isn't there a band named Phoenix?
Well, we were a band called Phoenix. Wow. I don't know if there's a more modern band called Phoenix now, but that was the name of the band. All right, that was a good question.
That's not the question.
Were you looking it up?
No, I know that there's a band named Phoenix. They're probably a little bit more successful.
It's not us.
But no.
We never made it out of the garage.
Actually, when I went back to edit that episode, you said you called the band Holier Than Thous, and I did not. In the moment, I didn't hear it. I did not give that the attention it deserved. That's a great answer. And if you ever resurrect it, that should be the name that you take on.
That's it.
All right. So here's I'm curious to even see what you think about me asking this question. Do you think that Catholics should watch movies or TV shows with nudity and sex scenes in them?
Ooh, why would you be curious as to what my take would be?
Not what your take. I'm just curious as to what you think about that kind of a question.
I'm going to be honest with you. I never really thought about it before until I went into formation in the diaconate program. One of my closest friends in formation, Chris Parker, who's now a deacon, I was kind of shocked one time because he was sharing how he won't watch those type of movies. if it has
To
something
be honest,
like
it's TV shows too now.
yeah, but he
With
won't.
Game of Thrones and Bridgerton
know.
and stuff. It's
If there's anything in it, he just turns it off. And he's a normal guy, right? So he's not like, oh yeah, I would expect that from Chris. He's a normal guy, and he just draws the line there. And it really, I never told
so
him
prior
this.
to formation, you would have considered not doing that
No,
abnormal?
I wouldn't have thought about it. I would have
Okay.
you just watch the movie, I never really would have thought about it.
That's just interesting that after 20 years of religious direction and
Well,
education.
you know what? There was a
that's
disconnect. There was a
interesting.
disconnect
Yeah.
for me.
No shame.
In all those
I
things.
find it.
No. There was just a disconnect for me. But then when I heard what Chris was doing, I began to think to myself like, yeah, you know what? I don't like it. I've never really liked it, and so why don't I do something about it? If I watch this stuff, then I'm saying that it's okay and that I agree with it to some degree, or that I don't mind it. Because the idea behind putting it in there, it's titillating. It's meant to invoke or evoke a certain response from you on a emotional and very primal level. I mean, that's why it's in there. And if I'm being completely honest, and I say this to my kids all the time, it doesn't add anything to the storyline.
Right.
Nothing
Yeah.
is added to the storyline. If you took it out, you wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't miss it. I'd rather see that action scene run its course than have that be on the editing floor and then have 3 minutes of smut in the movie. I'm just not interested. So, yes, early on, I don't think I paid much attention to it. I just kind of took it for granted, was just kind of rolling with the masses there. But thank you, Chris Parker, shout out to Chris Parker for just making it real for me and kind of bringing it home. And now I don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you're saying.
What did you say again?
I,
Can you say that again?
I'm not saying you can't have love stories on screen.
Yeah.
And I'm really talking about very sexually explicit stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned. And if I'm watching it, I'm contributing to the production of it. And I think about the souls that are involved on the other end of the camera, not just what I'm seeing.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah. And there's plenty of Catholics who consume that kind of,
Oh, yeah.
those kinds of movies and television. And I'm like, well, what is our responsibility as a Catholic? Not just, I don't want to, or I'll fast forward through those scenes. The whole movie had to be produced. And who were the souls involved in producing that movie? What did they go through? What objective, I'm not saying anyone's committed sins, but what objective behavior should not have been engaged in to produce that movie?
Here's an easy one to end on. I know you said 3, but I have 4.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Because I
don't know. We might not include all of these. Who knows?
No. But this is good. What's your favorite season of the church and why?
Oh, I mean Lent, because I remember I wrote a little piece on this. I don't know if it was for school or something, but I talked about how in Lent the air changes and the air just gets a little bit more sacred, and so. It's why I actually like funerals maybe a little bit on a spiritual. I don't like to go to funerals, but I think funerals are more spiritually.
For the assassination of all your dictators and, the death of all the dictators in your life.
Funerals are more spiritually fruitful encounters maybe than weddings are. Because there's more, it just has a level of seriousness to it. I like when people get serious about their faith. And have moments where
you
they
don't think
have
a married couple's serious?
Do you think most people who get married today are really invested in the sacramental aspect of it?
I think they're serious about what they're doing, in most cases.
Man, we have some differences of opinion. I think they love each other, and I think that yes, I think they're serious about we love each other, we want to get married. I don't think they're serious about getting married in the church necessarily, and what that all means. And what that means about the unity for the couple, and then
not every funeral's in the church either.
Okay. No, but if I'm talking about funeral masses, I'm talking about funeral masses versus wedding masses.
Okay.
I think people pray more in a funeral setting at a funeral mass than they do at a wedding mass.
I would agree.
And I think in Lent the focus is on the passion death of Christ and what that means for me. And I want to get serious about understanding that more and who he is in relationship to me. And I just think there's more of the sacred going on when we're thinking about those kinds of things.
Okay.
I love to think about the great feasts of the church too, Easter and Christmas. Yes. But I I find it's a more developmental time for myself. So yeah, Lent would be my favorite.
Yeah, sackcloth and ashes for
people are and I know how to have a good time. Like I really do. I'm not trying to be a bummer at all, but I find that people are also looking for more during the Lenten season. And so my job just gets more exciting too. I get to offer things and I get to talk about, you talk about when you talk about suffering, it resonates with people. And Lent has that element of repentance and suffering, Christ suffering and your suffering. And Dennis, what's your favorite season of the church?
Well, thanks for asking, because I was going to tell you one way or the other. My favorite season of the church is the Triduum.
Oh,
it is a
yes,
season.
It is a season.
It is a season.
Fine.
It is a season. And I love that. It's only 3 days, but...
I actually would agree with you. Yes, it's the high point. To me, it's like Lent's
that is it.
pinnacle. I know it's a different season.
Yeah. It's not even the pinnacle of Lent. It's its own season.
Lent lends itself to the pinnacle of this other. Oh my God, you're really annoying today.
But yeah, it's just the liturgies are just so different, and it's a total immersion. So I love them. There's a lot of work that's involved in, for me, from a ministerial position. Man, I love everything about it. I love the tone. I love the time. I love the liturgies. And interestingly enough, I mean, the Easter Vigil, it's the only time that a vigil for a Sunday Mass is in a separate season than the Sunday that's being celebrated. So, I mean, that Easter Vigil, it's its own season. It's that part of that Triduum season, that 3-day season.
Yeah.
And then Easter season doesn't really begin until dawn of Sunday.
Yeah.
It's beautiful how the church has it set up, and I don't care whether I'm at a hour-long Easter Vigil or if that puppy's going 3.5 hours. I am soaking up every minute. I love it. It's a beautiful liturgy. It's not like anything else that's done. So I look forward to that every year.
My favorite moments of any liturgical display ever in the calendar of the church is when the priest walks in on Good Friday and he prostrates himself. Yep. I am very emotional about that one moment.
Because you're all about sackcloth and ashes.
I love just the display of the humility.
Yeah, I know.
You know, oftentimes I think people see priests and they think, oh, they're like little princes of the church. And there might be priests out there that give that impression.
That would be a bishop.
I know. But when you see the priest completely laid out, it's just such a moving moment. Everything we do in the church is at the service of God. Yeah. And the priest is a servant of God. I don't think you can say it better than just with your body like that. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know how fruitful this was to everybody else, but I just enjoyed putting
Dennis had a ball, everybody.
I had a ball. I had an absolute ball just watching your facial expression.
We'll never do this again.
So you'll definitely be looking at those questions ahead of time.
We'll see you next time.
All right. God bless.